Welcome to VMblog's coverage of KubeCon and CloudNativeCon 2022 in Detroit. Today, I have the pleasure of having Alois Reitbauer, who is the Chief Product Officer at Dynatrace. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
If you could start by giving us a quick overview of the company.
So Dynatrace is a software intelligence company, and we have this vision of making software work perfectly. So what we do is we combine observability with runtime application security, AIOps, and intelligent automation, more or less covering everything you need from observing what's going on in your environment, analyzing it, and then eventually taking action. As you know, the observability space is a pretty large space. It's roughly 15 billion in market size. Obviously, the cloud keeps accelerating this as we are developing more applications that tend to get bigger and more complex. Also, from a Dynatrace perspective, our customers are, for example, SAP, Vitality, TSB Bank, British Telecom. So the global 15,000s are companies across different sectors of the industry.
And here at KubeCon, it's a very wide, broad ecosystem. How does Dynatrace fit within that?
So the way we fit in is actually with this growing complexity of the cloud native landscape. And there have been even jokes around how big the landscape is getting and growing. We have this increased complexity that people have to deal with. And on the one hand, we have way more data available than ever before. If you just look at the observability space with OpenTelemetry, also with security tooling, people see more and more data that they have available. But data itself is great, but you have to do something with the data. And where Dynatrace is really coming in is analyzing this data and creating actionable insights. So what are actionable insights? Telling you which parts of your application are actually slow and what's the root cause of things being slow. Detecting security vulnerabilities, but also telling you how critical are they to my application? Is this vulnerability connected to a backend that's holding company data? And helping people to assess and take the right actions, and eventually also build automation based on the findings that Dynatrace has. So we help people using all the data that's available in this ecosystem, analyzing it, and then automating even further to really come to this self-service type of approach of working with this data. And for example, we recently did this survey in the CIO report, and this is also feedback that we're getting from CIOs, for example, all talk about this explosion of data. They say that the teams are using a lot of tools that they introduced, but they still need this homogeneous view of their entire environment. And that's where we're really helping them to understand this. And also automation, obviously, is a great topic as environments keep growing. And I think we all still have this issue of we could hire more and more people than we actually have to deal with this increasing complexity and workload. That's where we help them automate and do more with smaller teams, and also using those teams for the most critical tasks at hand.
And for attendees at this event, what specific problems do you solve for them? And maybe you can give us some specific use cases.
So in the observability space, so it's understanding how your application works and why it works that way. We obviously collect all the telemetry data, on the one hand with OpenTelemetry, but also with our own agent technology that we're using. And we have these three signal types. What Dynatrace then is doing on top of it, we build up this model, which we call the smartscape. Think of the smartscape as a real-time model of the entire environment. Then we learn normal behavior of this environment, what the normal response time, error rates, how are systems interacting with each other. And in cases there are problems, we then use this information to not only tell you that you have a problem, but how you can actually resolve these problems. So we are supporting DevOps and SRE teams as they are delivering new application functionalities faster so that they are more confident in delivering these digital interactions, and also to be more efficient finding out what potential issues are. And again, it's not limited to observability. So we really see this convergence of observability and security. So security almost becoming yet another signal or source for data that fits into this overall picture. Just like for runtime security, you want to see that vulnerability, but you're combining it with tracing data to see how this component that has a security issue is related into your own environment. What's the attack vector of this vulnerability? And then also assessing how many users are using this, what are the structures there. So this is another example, like for one, helping them to analyze data in case things go wrong, assessing security problems, focusing on the most important ones first. And as we all know, security is this specific challenge. Like usually when you test an application for performance, you run a load test. You can assume that the application will perform fine under this load, no matter what's happening. Security, however, is different because security problems, 0 days can occur at any time. And then you have to react very quickly in your environment. You have to assess what's going on. So even if you don't change the application, they can happen at any time. We also focus obviously in helping the SREs to automate the processes by this. So we recently, for example, not actually recently, a couple of years ago, donated the Captain project to the CNCF, which is an automation engine that allows you to automate on top of all of these events that are happening. And also from a progressive delivery scenario, we see obviously we have approaches like blue-green deployments, canary releases, but also approaches with feature flagging. So we recently collaborated with the 20 leaders across the industry to launch the Open Feature Project, where we have a great variety of people participating in the project already to have a standard for feature flagging to really understand these highly complex interactions. And especially if you think about feature flagging, it might be that there's 200 different features involved in delivering one digital interaction. So you want to understand which features might having problems, which features result in which behavior in the application. And as you can see, this requires a lot of this AI and analytics in the backend. So the idea is really to have this smart analytics backend that takes a lot of the analysis burden off of the DevOps and SRE teams.
And if you could, maybe you talked about some of the problems you solved, but can you dive in a little bit deeper into what the Dynatrace technology does?
So what Dynatrace does is, obviously we support all data sources that are available out there and can ingest them. What we have built is also our own agent technology that allows you to pretty much collect all the data pretty much out of the box as well. So you can go both approaches, using OpenTelemetry other data sources and also let Dynatrace take care of it. First, we ingest all that data at enterprise scale with security and everything available. Next, we build up a real-time model of your environment. You can think you have millions of metrics. So how do you make sense of all of those metrics, of all of those interactions? You need to condense them in a picture that's actually understandable by humans because it's simply that complex. So we build up this real-time model, the Smartscape. Then we learn what is normal behavior. So we don't want you to look at all the data all the time. We just want to pick that data that's actually relevant. Like where are significant changes are happening. Then we combine observability data and the topology data that we have also with release information. Like how did the environment change over time? We take all of this into consideration, pushing it into our AIOps engine that then analyzes this data continuously and in real time, then providing insights like why, when problems occur, why are they occurring, who is affected by those problems, what is the exact root cause that you can link remediation to. And again, we do it for observability, from an observability perspective and from a security perspective. And when we talk about observability, we talk about backend systems as well as web front ends, mobile front ends. So really looking at the entire value chain for delivering a digital experience to customers, and really helping teams to scale here, because many of our customers don't just have like one application they're running. Some of them even have hundreds, and they're running millions of servers. And we really help them to do this with a reasonable effort. And then we have a dedicated module around cloud automation that helps you to link day one, day two operations automation to this. Like, for example, automatically rolling back a release that's not working, or if you figure out some operational issues to automatically trigger remediation actions.
Now, there's going to be quite a number of vendors at the on the show floor at KubeCon. If an attendee comes into your booth and talks to you, how do you describe what makes Dynatrace unique or differentiated in the market?
What makes us unique is first of all, like this real-time model that we're building up. I think that's where it all starts and what's the basis. And then it's really the AI engine underneath that does all of this analysis out of the box. So very often you get data on glass and you get alerts. But what you really want to do is you want to have more or less your virtual ops team that analyzes all of those problems. And that's like one of the uniquenesses with Dynatrace, that we provide these capabilities of the AI engine and this analysis. And what also makes us unique, that it's not like a set of tools that we kind of need to stick together, that we're covering maybe only one aspect. We're really covering it end to end. Really from getting the data, analyzing it, deriving meaningful answers to automating the actions that you have to take. It's more or less this one-stop shop for what you want to do, while still providing you the opportunity to take the tools that you already have available today and seamlessly integrate them with Dynatrace, because we also very well understand that many of our customers have already tools available. They have taken investment decisions, and they want to obviously make sure that these tools integrate seamlessly. So that's really the uniqueness, the AI capabilities, that real-time model, and really going from getting the data to automating actions after doing all this analysis.
And KubeCon is a place where historically people make their announcements or new product offerings. Is there anything that Dynatrace is going to be announcing at the show?
Yes, so we will be sharing an announcement around our Davis AI engine. So if you remember, that's the component that actually does the analysis, like your virtual operations SRE team. And we're significantly enhancing the Davis AI engine to do this analysis faster, add additional capabilities to be more proactive in this analysis, and even handling more Kubernetes-related use cases. Think of it like we're teaching Davis new tricks, if you want to call it that way, from what we see from our customers happening in the Kubernetes space and the typical problems that they see, like why is this happening here? Kind of support for Davis that we're constantly increasing as we see the technology landscape evolving with new technologies, so that we are always up to date there, and help people to automate more there.
Now, on the keynote stage during KubeCon, we're going to hear a lot about big picture items. What big themes or trends is Dynatrace interested in as we head into 2023?
The big trend that we see, and that we're not only talking about observability as like these three pillars of observability. As I mentioned before, security is seamlessly blending in there because it is part of delivering experiences. As I mentioned, we want to deliver these seamless digital experiences. And also business data comes into play. If you look at the definition of what cloud native means by the CNCF, if you really read between the lines, it really like covers everything from reliability, the delivery, better managing it, understanding business impact, and doing it securely. So these what used to be like different disciplines, it's like all blending into each other, and it's like becoming like one bigger picture. And that's also where our focus is, to really provide all the answers to all the audiences, but not independently, but like in an integrated picture. Also, obviously, standards are emerging, standards are growing. OpenTelemetry, we mentioned a couple of times, is maturing. People now start to adopt OpenTelemetry more and more. It's making its way into more and more frameworks, and they have to work with the data, have to understand it. And just recently, we announced our new Grail technology. Grail is a new data store at Dynatrace that can ingest more data, that supports massive parallel processing. So we call it a data lakehouse because it combines like capabilities from a data lake and a data warehouse, and it provides it in real time, and has even more powerful query and capabilities, and can deal with this massive amount of data that's available in there. So the goal will be, on the one hand, to like see this use case converge, which requires more advanced analysis capability on the one hand, at the same time dealing with more data, in a way that it doesn't really require additional effort from the companies who want to ship their applications and don't want to deal with their observability, security analysis, and business analytics infrastructure.
Now, would it be possible for us to get a quick demo of the product so people that are not attending the show can take a look at the product?
Obviously, sure. So as you can see, this is like an entry point to Dynatrace. Dynatrace is a SaaS-based solution that's also obviously very important because you almost otherwise have like this inception. Otherwise, you always have an ops team to run your application that's supported by an observability platform, and somebody also has to manage the observability platform then as well. So by having a SaaS-based offering, it actually takes a lot of burden of your teams. And I'll take the chance now to walk you through some of the concepts that we previously discussed. The first one is obviously smartscape technology. So we talked about smartscape technology before, and what you can see here is a modern environment. It's actually not even a big environment, but you can see all these individual nodes that really build up your application. Obviously, you can search and find them, and we really go all the way up, like from your individual data centers, all the way up to the host, the services that are running on it, the processes, services, and eventually the application. So we really discovered this entire stack. And oops, as shown before, also the dependency between those components. That's like this real-time model that I was talking about before, that we're building up. So that's one of the very essential points that we see here at Dynatrace. And you can see these environments tend to get really large really quickly. So you don't want to manage this in real time. The next part that we talked about was really, okay, how we analyze problems in the Davis AI engine. I think the best way to explain the Davis AI engine is by actually showing the Davis AI engine. And you see this concept here of problems. So what a problem in Dynatrace is, think of it pretty much as, I would call it almost like alerts on steroids. We have this topology model. So we take those individual alerts and take them into like this dependency of cause and effect chains. And let's look into a bit more data. Let's take a bit more hours here. All right, even a bit more. So we can see all of those problems in here. What we already get out of the box, we can decide what's the severity that we're interested in and what's the impact. Is it something that's only impacting the infrastructure? Is it impacting individual application services? Or is it impacting end users? That's already very important because we might only be interested in problems that are impacting end users. And then we might say we are only interested in errors for end users. This already helps us to break down what we're doing in here. So what the Davis AI is now providing us with, okay, this one doesn't have a root cause associated, sorry. Let's take this one here. Business impact. We talked about the conversions of business security and observability, affected users, and we can go even further by showing us actually which users are affected by this specific problem. Like we could really go into, in this case, it's a synthetic transaction that's running on this application, but I could pinpoint the exact users and just think of the effect this has on an application. Very often when we talk about remediation, we talk about fixing a server, rebooting it, or deploying a new version of the application. But suddenly, if I know which users are affected, I can have my customer support team directly reaching out, and we drive also the remediation process all the way up to a business level. Then obviously we see all the impacted services and also the root cause. So we have full root cause analysis available. If we go over here to the right, and we see that this is actually the Kubernetes reason why something was happening. Changes were detected automatically, like in this case, related to a process. And I can even take it one step further by what we call the visual resolution path. I can replay how the problem happened over time. So very often, if I'm the SRE here, you get called into a problem and things are already broken. One of your first questions really is, how did this get started? Like, how did this start to propagate through my system? And this allows you to visually replay the steps, to really focus on those components and immediately understand the problem, how it's happening, and also see how the remediation actions that you're actually triggering are affecting the environment in real time unless it gets resolved. It obviously also helps with the post-mortem analysis when you look at this to understand, okay, how a problem was resolved in production then. We obviously also talked about security. So also on the security, we can first understand how much of our environment is covered by security analysis. And again, this is managed out of the box by the Dynatrace one agent, so the technology that we use to instrument the environment. We detect critical vulnerabilities, obviously track them over time. And here we down here we have the critical ones. And we can drill down and understand like which processes were responsible, which processes this is talking to, and can get this real-time assessment of all of those vulnerabilities that are happening in the system. And we already have this pre-selection. So very often when you look at security tools, they will provide you with a large number of security alerts. But which ones are really critical for your environment? Not that you should ignore any, but which are the ones you should focus first on? And as you can see here, we have really a breakdown into like the most critical ones, those that have high priority, and those that might not have impact. And we're doing this assessment really by what it's connected to. Is it connected to the public internet? Is this a server or an application that's responsible, is connected to the internet? But also, is this a service that is talking to a database that might store sensible data? So we're not just taking the CVE score per se from the security vulnerability per se, but we look at how it's related to the entire environment. Obviously, Log4j is a critical vulnerability, but it's different if it's a service that's only available internally versus a service that's available publicly. And also provide recommended fixes. So we also take this out of the equation, helping the team. Obviously, in this case, it's like a Log4j upgrade that we should be running, obvious example in here, and what people should be fixing in certain environments. So this is also super helpful to manage this environment. So we talked about this. We could go like even further, but I just want to cover like the full flow. So we started from the discovery phase with Smartscape. We looked at problems. We looked at the security bits and pieces. The next level is really understanding releases. So we in real time track releases, and we also track service level objectives. So Dynatrace in your Kubernetes automatically understands releases and can show you if there is a problem. In this case, it's a vulnerability with a specific release. So this helps your team to understand how releases are affected in here. And obviously service level objectives, we see service levels objectives with error budgets, like in this case. But even more, we do not just know that we're using up our error budget. We can also drill down and understand from the error budget directly to the problem, as we have seen before, like which problems did impact the error budget. Because what you just knowing that your error budgets are draining doesn't really help you. You really want to understand why and which problems are affecting it. And last but not least, we can go into the orchestration projects where we have an application where we can monitor the entire release, in this case, like a delivery workflow, and use Dynatrace to hook into this workflow as part of the delivery when testing happens, and orchestrating this process as an automation flow. Trigger the evaluation and then decide whether this release is ready to go into production or should be removed from production, rolled back, rolled forward, whatever needs to happen. So I've now really taken you like from the very beginning, data discovery, analysis with Davis, adding security context. Business would be yet another step in here. We had some business context like getting the affected users. all the way to automation and remediation.
Well, thanks for that great demo. Great to see the visual representation of everything that you talked about. And we certainly appreciate having Dynatrace part of our KubeCon coverage. But before we let you go, where can folks go if they want to learn more about some of the things that you talked about today?
So obviously you can go to the Dynatrace website. There's a lot there. If you are at KubeCon, obviously the KubeCon booth is a great way to interact with us. We also run regular sessions. So if you start to follow us on social media, there's regular online sessions about Dynatrace that are super interactive where you can ask questions. We have what we call the observability clinics where we cover different topics as the ones we discussed right now. There is also a dedicated series, what we call the principal's office, where some of our most advanced sales engineering talent is showing different use cases, how you can use Dynatrace in different scenarios, so whether it's as low as monitoring Kubernetes and so forth. And all of this content is available online. So that's the easiest way to reach out to us. So follow us on social media, go to our website, go to YouTube, look for Dynatrace Performance Clinics. You'll find information about every capability of Dynatrace.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.